name is Sherry Wild, and my official title, well, I'm not sure. I'm an author of The Forgotten Promise, and I'm also a realtor and have a small real estate company, and I'm a mother. Those are my official titles, I would say. In 1987, there was a UFO flap in my community, and it was through that I met Don Schmidt, who was the co-director of the Center for UFO Studies out of Chicago. He came up with some other investigators to check on what was going on. It turned out that our community was having the most activity, UFO activity, is in the world, the hot spot in the whole world, and it went on for some time. And through a series of incidents, I connected with Don, and he ended up doing the regression on me to find out what had happened to me 20 years earlier in 1968 when I was 17 and had a missing time episode. And I had become obsessed with that idea 20 years later. For 20 years I never thought about it, never questioned what had happened to me. And all of a sudden in 1987 I start getting totally obsessed with it, having to know what had happened to me. So I wanted a hypnotist, and Don Schmidt knew the name of a good hypnotist, and that's how I connected with him. And it took him a while to convince me to allow the Center for UFO Studies to be the ones to be present and to allow them to be the facilitators of the regression. But my fear was that I knew that they were looking for an alien abduction, which was the wackiest thing I had ever heard of in my life. I thought it was just bizarre. Never had heard of such a thing, and I didn't believe it at all. So I wasn't afraid they were going to find it, but I was afraid that if they were looking for it, that they would somehow lead me into it. But Don was very reassuring, and he convinced me that that was not what they were looking for. That was the last thing they'd be looking for, and that it wasn't really possible to taint your memories under hypnosis, that in truth, the truth comes out. So I did, after a few months, it took him a few months to convince me, but I did allow them to regress me. And Stanley Mitchell was the best hypnotist in the world at the time. He was amazing, because I had some pretty powerful blocks, but they broke through, and I was wrong. Turns out there are such things as alien abductions, although I don't like that word, abduction. But at that time, I believed that I was a victim and that this was being done to me. I didn't see how it could be anything different. And it pretty much destroyed my life, at least for a while. It blew it apart. I could barely function. And my marriage came undone. Because it wasn't just the memory of that one episode when I was 17. It wasn't just the 2 hours of missing time. It was other experiences. I'd had hundreds and hundreds of them. And it was difficult for me to come to terms with that. It wasn't just the memories. The way they come back, they literally explode in your head. And you have these jarring, oh my God, that happened. Oh my God, that's what that meant. Oh my God, that's what happened that day. Yeah, I had tons of that happening. It was the idea that I'd lived a secret life, that I'd had all these hours of my life spent in the company of extraterrestrials and beings from another dimension or planet. That terrified me. The idea that I didn't know about it terrified me. The idea that it could happen terrified me. And then it was happening in real time. I became aware that they were coming for me. This would have been, by this time, 1988. And they were coming 2, 3, 4, and 5, as many as 5 times a week for me. Very disruptive to my life. A lot of my experiences happened during the day. So I'd be driving down a street. I remember one day driving down a street at straight up, it was noon, it was lunch hour. I was heading back to my office, I think. I was going down a street, I can't remember which direction I was going, but I was going down this particular street in my village. And in just the blink of an eye, I was on another street. My car was off to the side of the road. in another street, and the sun was in a different place, and I look and it's 3 o'clock, and no memory, no nothing. I mean, they're good. It's smooth. It's so smooth. You know, when they come for you, it's just seamless. The only thing that you notice is that you're in this place, and then all of a sudden you're in this other place, and there's this missing time and no memory. It was very disturbing, very, very disruptive to my life, and my marriage didn't survive it, and my sanity almost didn't survive it. I went to a lot of psychologists trying to get one of them to tell me I was insane. I would have rather have been diagnosed with some kind of mental illness and treated for that than to have to try to come to terms with the idea that I was being abducted by aliens. But after a while, they left me alone. It was probably late 1989 or so when they left me alone. May have been earlier than that, but anyway. When they disappeared from my life, then it was weird because then I missed them. And I thought that was sick. I thought I was really sick for that. And I thought, what is wrong with you? You know, I couldn't make sense of that. I couldn't make sense of any of this. They were teaching me things. They taught me that time doesn't exist. And the way that they taught me that was, you know, they do it by lessons and by downloads. This was before computers, but it's a good word, downloads. They drop it into your mind, kind of, and along with it are illustrations and examples of what they're trying to teach. It's a fascinating way that they would teach me, and they've been doing that my whole life. They taught me a lot of things. They taught me the 3 important things to know, they called it, and they started that when I was 5 years old, teaching me that. So I couldn't get it out of my mind after they were gone. I couldn't totally put it on the shelf, but I did my best. And I did that by becoming a workaholic. I went to work like crazy, and I was in real estate, and I became a developer, and I developed lots, and I built spec houses. I did commercial properties. I just kept myself really busy. The 3 important things to know would be the number 1 most important thing to know, and they really stressed this to me, that this is the only one we need to know, us being Earth humans, that we are all one with the Creator. And he said, if we could just get that, we don't really need to know anything else. And they taught it to me in so many different illustrations, you know, and just taught me that if you hurt another living thing, you're hurting yourself. There's no separation. There's no difference between me and you. And I get that now. But it was 1950s when he was teaching this to me, and I was going to Sunday school, and I was living in a 3-dimensional world, and you know, it didn't come easily to me, but when I got it, I finally got it. The second most important thing to know, and this one I didn't get until recently, why it was so important, why this was the number 2 most important thing to know. It seemed like there should have been something else, but we're multidimensional beings existing on more than one level at a time. And as I got older, they changed it to simultaneous. I guess they thought that word was too big for me. I don't know. We are multidimensional beings existing on more than one level simultaneously. I didn't understand why that was so important until we actually got into the shift right now. And I recognized, and they've continued their lessons and continued teaching me. And one of the things they taught me in 2009 or 2010 was that during this time of ascension, as we go with planet Earth into the higher dimension, that it's important that we bring all aspects of ourself back into alignment. And that's what we are doing. We're going into unity consciousness. We're going into oneness. And so we each have our own life stream, but then, you know, we bring aspects of that life stream into alignment, but then we also bring in, eventually we all, as we go further up the ladder of life, back to the Creator, we bring in all of life, and that's unity consciousness. So I get why that's important now. The third most important thing to know was monitor your thoughts. And that was big for me. That helped me in my life a lot. And I didn't know that other people didn't do that. I thought I didn't know where I had learned to do it, but I had learned to do that, and it kept me, I think, from experiencing depression and anxiety and a lot of other things that tended to plague my family genetically. Because I remember once talking to my mother suffered from severe depression, and my sister, and I hated to see them suffer. And when I would say, well, you know, are you watching your thoughts? Are you directing your thoughts? And they didn't, you know, they looked at me, you know, at that time, this was quite a long time ago. My sister I know now knows about that, but they didn't get what I meant by that. And so I'm grateful that I was taught to do that at a fairly young age. Now Eckhart Tolle is really big into it, and it's a powerful thing to do, powerful, because it creates your reality. I wasn't going to allow the book to be published. I'm estranged from my oldest daughter, and have been for about 5 years now. And my youngest daughter became upset when she found out that I had wrote about these experiences and that this book was coming out. And she didn't want the book to be published, and she told me that her sister felt the same way. So I decided that maybe that it wasn't worth it, that I needed to not do this. So I mean, the book was going to print any day. Maybe it was even there, I didn't know, but I decided I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to let it happen. And I figured if I called Dolores and talked to her, I could beg my way out of it. And I was 90% convinced that I wasn't going to go through it if there was any way I could stop it. And my significant other, he said, are you sure? You know, can you? You know, you're so far into it, can you not talk about this? I mean, isn't this what you're here for? And I said, but I'm paying too big a price, you know, and I can't do it. I don't want to lose my contact with my youngest daughter. And so he said, I'm going to just leave you be tonight, and you think about this. And I said, okay, I appreciate that. So I was alone that evening, and just me and my little dog. And in the middle of the night, Da, who is the name I gave my guy, came calling, and he said that, well, it's where the title of the book came from, because he said, Sherry, have you forgotten the promise you made? And I said, no. And he said, you took a vow. And I said, I know, but I didn't know that this was going to come to this, and you're asking too much of me. And he said, you need to think of the greater good. And I said, I can't believe that my little book can make that much difference. And I knew the answer, you know. He's always told me it starts with one. It only takes one. And he said, I know, he showed a huge amount of compassion for my situation with my daughters, but he showed me the truth of that situation and how it has to play out this way with them, and the reason why it has to play out with them this way, and why we have this split at this time. And then he kind of showed me what it would be like. He said, you cannot acquiesce to your daughter's demands. She will lose respect for you, which is probably true. I have amazing, beautiful daughters. They're very strong-willed. They're amazing. They're beautiful. And so he showed me what it would be like. And then when he left, he made a spectacle of himself. He did the old thing where the lights blazed up and then flickered out, and my doorbell shorts out, and all my electricity goes out in the house, and there's a big crack, like a big lightning. I mean, and the splash of light. I mean, the whole 9 yards. He made a big spectacle of himself, and my dog went flying. And I know that he did that, and my heart just melted when he did that. And I just sat in the bed and I laughed, because he did that so that I could remember consciously the conversation I just had with him, sitting on my bed. Because if he had let me just drift back into sleep, I would have remembered the essence of the conversation, but I would have thought it was a dream probably, because I do that. He tells me I do that all the time. I'm always convincing myself that these are dreams. So, I don't know. My guys have a great sense, Da has a great sense of humor. He's very compassionate and kind, but that kind of shows who he is, I guess. I mean, I'm here for a reason, and that's not arrogance to think that. It would be arrogance of me to think that this is not happening and this is not real, and to not own up to it. I call him Da. I believe it is because I gave him that name when I was a little girl. He's been with me since I was a newborn. He stood by the crib and we looked at that body laying in the crib, and I fought with him then and I said, I'm not going back in there. And he said, you have to. Of course I knew I had to, but I said, it's way harder than you think. And he said, I know, but so he's been with me from before conception. I was with him before this life. That's where I was that's my family. And so I call him Da. It's not his name. It's like he was a father to me when I was a young child. He felt very much like a father. I loved my own father. I love my father, but he was like a father to me. And he doesn't have a name. I don't believe he has a name. He has an energetic signature. I can find him anywhere out there. I can send information to him and I know that he hears me. He finds me through each of us has our own energetic signature. So they don't use implants to track me. That's not how they do it. When I asked him if he was a Zeta, because he looks like a Zeta, he looks like a gray. And even in my book, I refer to him as a gray throughout my book, but the book I was awakening and I'm still remembering, and the layers are peeling away as time goes by. So at one point, when the book was still, I think, just about to be published, or maybe it was already, I asked him, are you a Zeta? And because in the book, if you read it, at one point he tells me he's from Andromeda, and that's how he said, he has a little bit of a British accent. And so my publisher wanted to know. And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, ask him. So I did. And he said, and I said, are you a Zeta? And he said, that would not best describe the truth of who I am. And I said, well, you look like a gray. And he said, oh, that's just a container that I wear. A lot of us are what you would call etheric beings. We don't have a form, a body, solid body. But when we come into your world, which is a world of density, 3-dimensional, 4th-dimensional, we have to have a body in order to do our work. So we put on this container, it's highly functional. And I said, oh, and he said, that's why you see so many of the grays, and there'll be different colors and there'll be slight differences and variations, because most of us we choose that container because it's functional. But he said, but many of us who visit your planet are not formed creatures. We've moved beyond that. And I said, well then, who are you? Where are you from? You know, what describes who you are if they want to know? And he took a second and then he said, I am a voyager of the universe going where needed in service to the Creator. And I said, oh, okay, cool. I thought I could never have made that up myself. So a lot of people are wondering about the planet and, you know, what's happening on the planet. There's a lot of pain and chaos, and seems like we're going to hell in a handbasket, you know, and a lot of people feel hopeless, and I see it in a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds. I see them getting this sense of hopelessness, and why should I even try, because there's no chance that the world's going to be any better. But it's not true. What we're experiencing now on the planet is a cleansing of sorts. It's a birthing process. We have to bring to the surface all the negative energy, everything that is not of the light needs to come to the surface to be healed. So that's what's happening on the planet now. And so then follows the question, how did we get like, because then I'll say, you know, you weren't created to live like this. Our Creator never would create a world like this, a world of pain and suffering and death. Think of it. If you have a child, would you put your child, if you were the Creator and you could create the perfect world for your child, would this really be it? No. No. So our Creator did not create this world. We created it through our fear, the idea of separation. The original Earth was a three-dimensional planet that had beings on it that lived a three-dimensional life. It's the first stage of consciousness. And they lived in complete awareness of the truth of who they were. That is, that they were an extension of the Creator, coming out to play in creation and to learn to be a co-creator, and to that they were aspects of the one source. And so they lived without fear, and they lived as long as they wanted to, and it was joyful and beautiful, and they were learning to create and lived long lives, 700, 800 years, however long, and the body didn't deteriorate or suffer. It would be laid aside when they were ready to have another experience. So when it came time for the universe and planet Earth along with it, our solar system, to go up to the next dimension, because all evolves together, and so time to go into the fourth dimension, there were those in the universe, there were some called wayward souls who had misused their creative powers for not positive experiences, and so they were not ready to move to the next dimension. So the children on planet Earth at that time said, because the planet Earth was just one of the most beautiful and high frequency planets, and they said, just bring those souls here and we'll hold ourselves behind, stay in the third dimension, and those beings will come onto the planet and our love and light will pull them up, and then we'll catch up to the rest. And it seemed like a good plan, and it should have worked. It seemed like it really should have worked, but it didn't work. Instead, they introduced fear and the idea of separation onto the planet. And the souls who were on planet Earth at that time, millions of years ago, they fell into a state of separation. You know, they asked the question, who am I? That's all it took. They didn't know their being was of the Creator. They didn't know, they just had a question, and that's all it took. And fear is a funny thing. I mean, and they spiraled downward. The vibration, the light of the planet fell down. As the planet fell into darkness, into a lower frequency, it attracted low vibrational beings, which you see when the vibration was high, the low vibrational beings couldn't even come close to it. But now that the vibration of the planet was so low, these low vibrational beings who feed on fear came onto the planet and claimed it as their own, and have been here ever since. And they have controlled humanity, kept them in fear, because they feed off of fear. They don't have the source of the Creator. They are of the Creator, but they have just fallen so far. So it was quite a dilemma as to what to do about planet Earth, to try to get her to come back and to not lose the children on planet Earth. And there have been lots of attempts at trying to bring her back, not Gaia, but her children. And Gaia held back her own ascension. And there have been many attempts, and each one has failed, because you've heard about the battles for planet Earth, and there's some truth to that. So this time, an ingenious plan was put into play, because in 1945, when the atomic bomb went off, that, there are worlds within worlds, and we're multidimensional beings, and the planets. That atomic bomb didn't just destroy on this planet, it also destroyed other worlds because of the frequency of it. And it was not going to be allowed. That the timeline showed that Earth was going to be destroyed, and humans, with her, of course. And Gaia asked for assistance. And she said, I'm ready to move on, with or without my children. So that was 1945, and you can't interfere with another race's ascension process or their awakening process, their development. You just can't. It's not allowed. You can't go save. I mean, you can see how that doesn't work. You can't save, because that's not learning anything. That's being done for them. So all the attempts that were made to try to bring the children back into light failed. So it took a lot of planning when it was decided that souls would come onto the planet in mass millions, billions of us would come on, and our vibration, because we would be coming from a higher frequency and coming down into this frequency, would hopefully would pull the frequency up. Hopefully enough of us would remember the truth of who we are. The ETs would be allowed to have this so-called abduction experience. Before I came here, I told don't leave me alone. Don't let me fall behind the veil. Don't let me fall too far into forgetfulness. Stay in my life. Stay involved. And that's why I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of abductions. And it was to remind me of the truth of who I am. I mean, he showed me the planet in about 1958 or 59. Showed me the planet being destroyed, and the UFO investigators believed that was the ETs studying our emotions, and that's not what it was about at all. It was them triggering a memory in us without saying right out to us, you came here to, instead he said, you have to change your ways. And I'm crying and I'm saying, I'm just a little girl, what do you want me to do? And he says, it starts with one. It was things like that that happened throughout my life that caused me to finally remember who I am, and to write the book and tell this story. But as late as 1989, when I was having the encounters at that time, and Da talked to me at that time about the shift that was going to be happening, the change, he called it Earth Changes. And he said it is an absolute that planet Earth will be going into the higher frequencies. For children, there are some who have asked, and they deserve to move into the higher frequencies. They've been dominated too long, and that's not to be allowed any longer. So those who resonate with that frequency will go with her. Those that do not will be taken to another planet to continue on their journey. And he stressed there's no judgment in this, and there's not. So that's the story of planet Earth. And 1989, it didn't look like not all of humanity was going to make it. There was concern right up until the portal opened, at least from my perspective. I mean, I remember some meetings that I attended on the ships where it was, what are we doing? What are we going to do? What we need to give more assistance. I have other ET contactees who remember being at those same kinds of meetings. It's a push. I get frustrated, sometimes really terribly frustrated. I just want everyone to wake up and remember we can change this world in a heartbeat, in the twinkling of an eye, if we would just all wake up and remember who we are and see ourselves and others, see the Christ consciousness in everyone we meet. It's hard. I have real compassion for the humans who have been here for a long time and trapped in this cycle of karma, because it's not easy to remember after you've been here for that long. Well, Da told me that in 1989 when he taught me to be a light reader, and I asked why I had to do that. He said, well, because there will be great changes happening on planet Earth, and that it was a absolute that planet Earth would be going into the higher dimensions, and those of her children who were ready to go with her into the higher frequencies would be going with, and those that were not of enough frequency could not go with. And so they would be taken to another planet, another three-dimensional planet, to continue on their journey. And he said all will make it eventually, and there's no judgment in it. It's not good or bad. There's absolutely no judgment. Everyone will get there eventually. And I became very upset, and I said, my first thing was, does God know you're doing this? I always figured it was them doing this or something to us. I said, God know you're doing this? And no answer. And I said, what about my children? What about families? Are some going to go and some are going to stay? That can't be right. This can't be right. No answer. And I said, well, you need to tell me. I mean, this doesn't make sense. Are you going to take them by ships? Excuse me, are you going to take them by ships to another planet? Or are they going to die and then be born on another planet? And no answer. The answer I got was one I hear a lot, which is, you know all you need to know for now, Sherry. Oh, and what I've learned since then is that it seems that we're all meant to go together. It's kind of like the 100 monkey thing, and I want to believe that. I want to believe that we will have the effect of all of us. It's a journey, and planet Earth, it isn't, I don't believe it's going to be like there's going to be one moment where you either cross the finish line or not. I mean, every soul has their own journey, but there is this opening now, because I believe the physical is manifesting for the soul's development. So there's this alignment, this wonderful alignment that happened on December 21st, 2012, which is the physical manifestation of what we are experiencing as part of the awakening. And so it is an opportunity to move into a higher frequency. And I'm just going to say my understanding, and whether it resonates or not, you can decide, but my understanding is that we should all be working to raise our vibration as high as we possibly can, which means release all fear and all judgment, come from your heart, because I think there will come a moment where you will go where you resonate with, your experience, because we create our own experience. And so we may all be sharing somewhat the same planet, but our experience will be based on where we are, where we resonate. Does that make sense? Yeah. Something along those lines is going to happen. But I know there will be those that, certainly those that have been controlling the planet will not be going to the higher frequencies unless they choose to make that leap, which they can. It is all choice, and it's all good. The truth of it is that this is a world of duality, and many of us came here to experience the world of duality. And so to judge those who play the role of whether it's good, evil, whatever you want to name it, there should be no judgment in that. We all are created by the same creator. We're all part of oneness, and we all can have our own experiences. And nothing happens to you without your consent. It's not possible to be a victim. So you can't be angry at someone. There's nobody else out there doing anything to you. It's all part of the hologram, all part of the play that we're involved in. It's a script. It's kind of a script. Yeah. I think my message is the message of oneness, and it's the message of overcoming fear, so that we can rejoin our cosmic family. We have family out there. We're not really alone on this little planet floating through space. We're part of a universal family, and it's amazing. And it's been long enough that humanity has lived on a planet where there is so much suffering. It is not the way we are supposed to live, and I just want to see it. I'm hoping and praying that the awakening happens fast enough that it can change. I'd love to see a lot of change in my lifetime. That would be great, but it will happen. It's all in divine order. I just keep telling myself that. When I get frustrated, I just keep saying it's all in divine order. God knows what he's doing. So, he's in charge. The book is called The Forgotten Promise, and it's available on my website, which is theforgottenpromise.net, or it's available on Kindles and Nooks, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, of course, and through Dolores Cannon's site, Ozark Mountain Publishing has it. So it should be available any place.